Step into a Nashville courtroom where a widow battles a ruthless lawyer to reclaim her late husband's stolen music. Armed with his old notebook, she faces a smug critic who buried his talent until a student, conductor, and XPI unravel a web of plagiarism tied to a famous composer. A shocking letter stuns the judge, winning her case. But a cryptic note warns the fight's not over. Hit play for a suspenseful tale of justice, legacy, and secrets still humming in the shadows. Rain tapped a slow rhythm on the windows of the Davidson County Courthouse in Nashville, Tennessee, a city pulsing with music and memory. Joan Ellis, 52, stood at the plaintiff's table, her white blouse crisp despite the tremble in her hands. She clutched a battered composition notebook, her late husband Paul's. Its pages yellowed, ink smudged from years of dreams. Across the room, Leonard Grayson, 68, a towering music critic in a pinstripe suit, smirked as his lawyer, Arthur Crane, paced like a shark. Crane, sharp-eyed and ruthless, opened with a jab. Mrs. Ellis claims her husband wrote works stolen by the late composer Vincent Marwood, works that won Grammys, filled concert halls. She's got a notebook and a sob story. It's a desperate grab at fame. The gallery music buffs, reporters, skeptics murmured. Joan's lawyer, Sarah Tate, a steady woman in her 40s, countered. Paul Ellis's compositions were plagiarized. That notebook proves it dates. Drafts, his hand. Joan's hazel eyes flicked to Grayson. He'd trashed Paul's talent decades ago, called him a hack in print. Now, he sat as Marwood's estate executor, defending the legacy and his own clout. Paul died 3 years back, heart attack at 60, his music lost in a fire. Or so Joan thought until she found the notebook in their attic, lyrics and scores mirroring Marwood's hits. Day one unfolded. Crane waved off the notebook as fantasy. Tate pushed its authenticity. Judge Henry Caldwell, 65 and grizzled, leaned in. Show me proof, Mrs. Ellis. What had Paul left her? And who'd buried it? The courtroom air thickened as day two began in Nashville's Davidson County Courthouse, rain drumming a steady beat outside. Joan Ellis sat, Paul's notebook open before her, its pages a map of stolen dreams. Arthur Crane, Grayson's lawyer, circled like a vulture. This notebook's a fairy tale, he sneered, holding it aloft. No dates verified, no witnesses. Mrs. Ellis wants a payday, not justice. He tossed it back, a taunt in his smirk. The gallery reporters, music nerds, Grayson's cronies shifted, some nodding. Sarah Tate rose, voice firm. Paul Ellis documented every note-dated entries from 92 match Marwood's 94 hits. Experts can prove it. She slid a forensic report across ink analysis. Handwriting match. Crane scoffed. Conveniently found after Marwood's death? A widow's scam. Joan's hands clenched. Paul had slaved over those songs, humming them in their cramped kitchen, while Grayson's reviews cut him down. Now, Marwood's plaques hung in halls Paul never saw. Judge Caldwell peered over his glasses. Mrs. Ellis, why'd it take 3 years to surface? Joan stood, voice steady despite the ache. Paul died. Sudden heart gave out. Fire took our garage, his tapes. I found this in the attic last month, buried in a box. It's his. Every chord's his soul. Grayson leaned forward, eyes cold. Sentimental drivel. Marwood was a genius. Your husband was a nobody. That night, Joan sat in her East Nashville bungalow, notebook open under a lamp. A knock. Tim Reed, 28, Paul's former student, now a music prof at Belmont. Found something, he said, breathless, sliding over photocopies. Paul's old class notes, melodies he taught me, same as Marwood's Blue Ridges. He didn't share 'em wide. Joan's pulse quickened. Grayson was at those recitals, she said. He knew. Who'd bridged Paul to Marwood? And what else hid in those pages? Day 3 broke humid and restless over the Davidson County Courthouse. The gallery packed with Nashville's music, faithful songwriters, critics, fans drawn by whispers of a stolen legacy. Joan Ellis sat, Paul's notebook a talisman in her hands. Its faded ink, a lifeline to his truth. Arthur Crane paced, voice dripping venom. "This is a widow's delusion," he said, jabbing a finger at the forensic report. "Handwriting matches? Ink tests? Any hack could fake it. Mrs. Ellis had years to cook this up." He smirked at Grayson, who nodded, arms crossed like a king, unbothered. Sarah Tate countered, calm but cutting. "Paul's notes predate Marwood's famed 92 drafts, verified by a Belmont professor who studied under him." She called Tim Reed to the stand. Tim, lanky in a tweed jacket, adjusted his glasses. "Paul taught me those melodies in 93 Blue Ridges, Tennessee Dawn. I've got handouts, dated. Marwood debuted him a year later." The gallery buzzed, reporters scribbled. Grayson's smirk twitched. Crane pounced. "You're biased, a student cashing in on nostalgia." Tim held firm. "I've got no stake, just facts." Joan watched Grayson, his gray eyes narrowing. He'd been at Paul's recitals, front row, notepad out. Dismissing him in print, sure, but listening. That afternoon, a new face slipped into her corner, Lila Monroe, 60, a retired conductor with a steel gray bob and a voice like bourbon. "Paul sent me scores in 95, she said, handing Joan a folder. "Said he was pitching 'em. Next year, Marwood's got 'em on stage. I thought Paul sold out. Now I see it." Joan's chest tightened another thread. Judge Caldwell leaned in. "This is piling up, Mrs. Ellis. Where's the link?" Joan stood, voice steady. "Paul never sold a note someone took him. Grayson was there, start to finish." Crane laughed, sharp. "Conspiracy? Prove it, widow." Grayson's gaze bore into her cold, daring. That night, Joan met Lila and Tim at a diner, rain streaking the windows. "We need more," she said. A gravelly voice joined Ed Carver, 72 XPI, white hair wild. "Tracked Marwood's old manager," he said. "Dead, but his widow's got boxes, might be gold." What tied Grayson to the theft? And how deep did it run? The fourth day in Davidson County Courthouse dawned sticky, Nashville's air heavy with rain and secrets. Joan Ellis sat, Paul's notebook open, its pages a quiet rebellion against the storm brewing across the room. Arthur Crane, Grayson's lawyer, strutted forward, voice ablade. "This is a house of cards, student nostalgia, a conductor's hunch, a widow's tears. No proof ties Marwood to this fantasy." He waved at the notebook, smirking. "She's chasing ghosts for a payout." The gallery music insiders, reporters, skeptics shifted, some nodding. Sarah Tate stood, unflinching. Paul's work was stolen dated drafts, witnesses, scores sent out. "It's no ghost." She called Lila Monroe to the stand. Lila, poised in a black blazer, spoke clear. "Paul mailed me Tennessee Dawn in 95 full orchestration. I urged him to pitch it. Next year, Marwood's playing it at the Ryman. No credit to Paul." Crane sneered. "You misplaced it. Marwood wrote it fresh." Lila's eyes flashed. "I've got the postmark, Paul's hand." Judge Caldwell scratched his chin. "This is getting thick, Mrs. Ellis. Where's the theft?" Joan rose, voice steady despite the tremor in her gut. "Someone bridged Paul to Marwood. Grayson was at every gig, every critique. He knew the work, buried it, handed it off." Grayson's smirk faltered, just a flicker. Crane laughed. "No evidence, just spite from a nobody's wife." That night, Joan huddled with her crew in her bungalow, Tim poring over handouts, Lila tracing scores, Ed Carver nursing coffee. "Got a hit," Ed said, voice rough. "Marwood's manager, Hal Dixon, died '05, but his widow's in Franklin. She's got storage letters, contracts. I'm headed there tomorrow." Joan's pulse jumped. "If Hal knew..." Tim cut in. "Grayson linked to Hal reviews, mentioned meetings." Lila nodded. "Conductor circles, too. Hal bragged about finding Marwood." Back in court, day 5. Crane doubled down. "This notebook's a prop, prove it, left her attic." Then Ed strode in, weathered face set, a file in hand. Found this Hal's letter to Grayson, 93, Ellis's stuff's gold Marwood can use it, signed. The gallery, gasped reporters, surged. Grayson bolted upright. That's fake! Crane sputtered. Unverified. Caldwell's gavel paused, eyes wide. What had Ed cracked open? And could Grayson wriggle free? The air in Davidson County Courthouse crackled as Day 5 stretched into late afternoon, Nashville's skyline dimming beyond rain-streaked windows. Joan Ellis sat, Paul's notebook steady in her lap. Its pages now a weapon echoing Ed Carver's "Find a letter from Hal Dixon to Grayson," tying Paul's music to Marwood's fame. The gallery reporters, musicians, locals leaned in, breathless. Judge Caldwell held the letter, glasses perched low, voice gruff. This is dated 93 Ellis's stuff's gold. Explain, Mr. Crane. Arthur Crane, flustered for once, adjusted his tie. It's a forgery, unverified, pulled from thin air. My client's a critic, not a thief. He shot Grayson a look steady him, quick. Grayson stood, voice smooth despite the sweat on his brow. I advised Marwood. Sure, never stole a note. This is a setup by a desperate widow. His eyes bore into Joan, daring her to flinch. She didn't. Sarah Tate rose, calm but lethal. That letter's no fake. Hal Dixon's widow confirmed it, matched his signature from contracts. Paul's work flowed through Grayson to Marwood plagiarism, plain and simple. She slid a notarized affidavit from the widow across Franklin's storage had spilled its guts. The gallery erupted shouts, pen scratching. Crane snapped. Circumstantial, no proof. Grayson handed it over. Caldwell's gavel hovered, eyes locked on Ed. Ed stepped up, gravel in his voice. Found more Hal's journal, 94. Grayson says tweak Ellis's chords Marwood's set. It's his handwriting, Judge. Grayson's face drained, a ghost in his suit. Joan's heart thudded, Paul's chords. His soul twisted into Marwood's glory. She stood, voice cutting through. Paul wrote every note. Grayson heard him live, passed him off. That's theft, not advice. The room stilled, all eyes on Caldwell. Crane flailed. This is a circus. Her husband's a nobody. But Caldwell banged his gavel, slow, deliberate. Quiet. I've heard enough. Recess till tomorrow. I'm reviewing this. The gallery buzzed as he exited, Grayson whispering furiously to Crane. That night, Joan sat with Tim, Lila, and Ed at her kitchen table, coffee cold. It's there, Lila said, tracing scores. Paul's mark, undeniable. Tim nodded. Grayson's cooked. Ed grunted. Maybe. He's got pull watch for a counter. What would Caldwell rule? And who'd Grayson call in the dark? Day 6 dawned gray and restless over Davidson County Courthouse. Nashville's streets slick with overnight rain. Joan Ellis stood at the plaintiff's table, Paul's notebook a quiet anchor in her hands. Its pages now a chorus of truth echoing through the courtroom. The gallery overflowed, reporters jostling, musicians whispering, locals holding their breath. Judge Caldwell settled in, face etched with lines deeper than yesterday. I've reviewed the evidence, he said, voice low. Let's finish this. Arthur Crane leapt up, voice sharp but frayed. Your Honor, this is a sham letters, journals, all circumstantial. My client's a critic, not a criminal. Mrs. Ellis has no case. He waved at Grayson, who sat rigid, silver hair mussed, eyes darting. Sarah Tate stood, steady as stone. Paul Ellis's work was stolen dated drafts, witness testimony, Hal Dixon's own words. Grayson bridged it to Marwood plagiarism, theft, deception. She laid out the notebook, Tim's handouts, Lila's scores, Ed's fines, a fortress of proof. Caldwell peered at Grayson. You've got something to say? Grayson rose, voice tight but polished. I critiqued Ellis harsh, sure. Advised Marwood, too. Coincidence, not crime. She's grasping at shadows. His gaze flicked to Joan Cold, daring. She met it, unflinching. No shadows, she said, voice clear. Paul wrote Blue Ridges in our kitchen, 92. Dated here. You heard it live, took it. Marwood never hummed a note till you fed him. The gallery, murmured reporters, scribbled. A phone camera clicked. Crane sputtered. She's lying, prove delivery. Ed Carver stepped forward, file in hand. Hal's widow gave me this 95 receipt. Grayson picked up a package from Hal. Same week, Marwood rehearsed Tennessee Dawn. Caldwell's eyes widened, gavel still. Grayson's jaw twitched, a crack in his armor. Tate pressed. Ink matches. Signatures hold Paul's work, stolen clean. Caldwell leaned back, silence stretching. I've seen enough, he said finally, voice gravelly. Paul Ellis authored those compositions. Evidence is airtight. Grayson, you're liable for plagiarism and fraud. Mrs. Ellis wins. Full rights restored, damages pending. The gallery erupted. Cheers, gasps, flashes. Grayson bolted upright. This is absurd! Crane grabbed his arm, whispering fast. Jones stood, knees trembling, notebook clutched tight. That night, her bungalow glowed, Tim, Lila, Ed toasting with cheap wine. Paul's back, Lila said, smiling. But a note slid under Jones' door later. You won this round. More to play. She stared, pulse racing. Grayson was down. But whose game lingered? The verdict lingered in the air of Davidson County Courthouse as the sixth day faded, Nashville's skyline softening under a drizzle. Joan Ellis stood, Paul's notebook pressed to her chest, its pages a vindication of his stolen legacy. Judge Caldwell's ruling echoed, Paul's music restored, Grayson liable, damages to come. The gallery cheered, a raw swell of voices, reporters shouting questions, musicians clapping, locals hugging. Arthur Crane slumped, whispering to Grayson, whose face was a mask of fury, silver hair wild as he stormed out, cuffs looming in his future. Joan stepped into the humid night, Sarah Tate at her side. You did it, Sarah said, smiling faint. Joan nodded, voice soft. Paul did. I just held on. Blur. The crowd spilled onto the steps, Tim Reed grinning, Lila Monroe wiping tears, Ed Carver tipping his hat. Drinks on me, Ed grunted, and they piled into Joan's bungalow, a cramped haven on East Nashville's edge. Wine flowed, laughter too. Tim replayed the verdict on his phone. Lila hummed Blue Ridges, Ed toasted. To Paul heard at last. But at midnight, Joan found the note slipped under her door, typed stark. You won this round, more to play. Her breath caught, wine glass trembling. She called Ed over, voice low. Grayson's out on bail? His doing? Ed frowned, white hair glinting under the lamp. Maybe. Or someone bigger. Hal's journal hinted at a backer. Could be alive. Tim joined, eyes sharp. Marwood's estate millions tied up. They'd fight dirty. Lila nodded. Conductors heard rumors. Grayson was a front. Next day, Joan sat in her kitchen, notebook open, radio playing Paul's reclaimed chords, now credited, airing wide. The town buzzed, record labels called. Fans left flowers at her shop. Grayson faced fraud charges, his empire cracking, but that note gnawed. She met Ed at a diner, rain tapping the roof. Doug Moore, he said, sliding a photo Grayson with a suited man, 90s unsigned. Hal's old partner maybe, still out there. Joan gripped her coffee, eyes on the blur. Weeks later, she walked Nashville's streets, Paul's music on every corner, hers now, alive. A new life bloomed, royalties, peace. But that photo lingered, a shadow uncaught. Who'd played the bigger game? And when would the next note fall? Rain tapped a steady rhythm on the windows of the Davidson County Courthouse in Nashville, Tennessee, a city alive with music and ghosts. Joan Ellis, 52, stood at the plaintiff's table, her white blouse crisp despite the quiver in her hands. She clutched Paul's composition notebook, battered, yellowed, ink smudged from decades of dreams. Across the room, Leonard Grayson, 68, a towering music critic in a pinstripe suit, smirked as his lawyer, Arthur Crane, paced with predatory grace. Crane opened with a barb. Mrs. Ellis claims her late husband wrote works stolen by Vincent Marwood Grammys. Fame, all a lie. She's got a notebook and a sob story, a desperate ploy. The gallery songwriters, reporters, skeptics murmured. Joan's lawyer, Sarah Tate, a steady woman in her 40s, fired back. Paul Ellis's music was plagiarized. This notebook proves it. Dates, drafts, his hand. Joan's hazel eyes flicked to Grayson. He'd trashed Paul's talent in print. Called him a hack. Now, as Marwood's estate executor, he guarded a stolen throne. Paul died 3 years back. Heart attack at 60. His tapes lost in a garage fire. Or so Joan thought until she found the notebook in their attic. Lyrics and scores mirroring Marwood's hits. Day 1 unfolded. Crane dismissed it as fantasy. Tate pushed its authenticity. Judge Henry Caldwell, 65, grizzled and sharp, leaned in. "Show me proof, Mrs. Ellis." Day 2, Crane sneered. "A fairy tale, no witnesses." Tate slid forensic reports, ink analysis. Handwriting match. Grayson's smirk twitched. Day 3, Tim Reed, Paul's ex-student, testified Paul taught him Blue Ridges in '93, predating Marwood's '94 debut. Crane jabbed. "Bias." But Tim held firm. Lila Monroe, a retired conductor, added, "Paul sent me scores in '95 next year. Marwood's playing them." Day 4, Ed Carver, ex-PI, brought a lead Hal Dixon's widow had boxes. Day 5, Ed dropped a letter Hal to Grayson. '93. Ellis's stuff's gold, Marwood can use it. The gallery gasped. Grayson paled. Day 6, Caldwell ruled. Paul's music stolen. Grayson liable. Rights restored. Cheers erupted. Crane slumped. Grayson stormed out. Charges pending. That night, Joan's bungalow glowed. Tim, Lila, Ed toasting Paul's win. But a note slid under her door. "You won this round. More to play." Joan's pulse raced. Ed grunted. "Grayson's out on bail, or someone bigger." Tim mused. Marwood's estate, millions at stake. Lila nodded. Grayson was a front. And weeks later, Paul's chords filled Nashville's airwaves, credited, alive. Joan walked the streets, flowers at her door, a new life budding. Ed dug a photo of Grayson with a mystery suit, '90s, unnamed. "Hal's partner," he said, "still out there." She gripped the notebook, eyes on the horizon. Victory sang, but shadows hummed a deeper tune. Who waited in the wings? Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.